Ambedkar, do you think democracy is going to work in India?
No.
Except in a formal sense, if you want. What do you mean?
Well,
the real, I mean, a paraphernalia of democracy, quinquennial elections, prime ministers, and so on and so on. Well, but elections are very important.
No. Elections are important provided they produce really good men.
A blatant case of police high-handedness came to light yesterday in the midst of a bustling market area in Guwahati when a police personnel assaulted a food delivery boy. The incident happened at the busy Fancy Bazaar, where an OC of the Pan Bazaar police station, Pargab Borbora, was seen assaulting a Zomato food delivery boy. The incident, which was captured on video, went viral, sparkling outrage from people who questioned the police personnel's shocking behavior in full public view. As per report, a minor traffic violation where the Zomato delivery boy, identified as Gyantip Hazarika, reportedly jumped a signal and entered into a no-entry zone. It was then that the enraged OC got hold of the delivery boy and began assaulting him with slaps and punches in full public view, while also threatening and abusing him. The repeated punches and threats by the police personnel to the delivery boy shocked the onlookers, and that is the moment when the incident was captured on video, and it was the right thing to do.
Well, allegations of police negligence, but then also a display of police brutality. An ACP who slapped a woman protester outside the Dayanand hospital where this young girl is being treated. We are now, in fact, hearing that this cop has been suspended. So
2 days, if there was one issue about literally leading to national outrage, that was there a case of IAS fraud? The question now is, where is Pooja Khedkar? It's been 7 days on. She should have been reporting to the IAS Academy in Missouri, but she cannot be contacted right now. Her phone is still switched off. While accused of faking her disability certificate, her OBC non-creamy layer status to crack the UPSC, she also provided allegedly fake documents to substantiate her claims. Now, it's not just her. Remember, her parents are also under scrutiny. Her mother, Manorba Khedkar, is in judicial custody till 3rd of August for allegedly threatening a farmer with a gun. The video of that incident has been viral. Her father also has faced different issues, specifically at this point. The fact that he's a former Maharashtra government officer and a Neta who was also twice suspended from service when he was working in the government service. He's also been accused of corruption and extortion earlier. So it's the full family that's in the dock. But the question is, why and how has the officer not even returned to her academy where she was summoned?
I think there were instances when some people said it's misleading, certain communities were not harmed, but all of this is getting caught on camera. I think camera has really empowered citizens. Just imagine what does not get recorded on camera. There's a member of parliament who gets paid salary, receives privileges. That MP has no time for his constituency that elected him. There are ministers who can't even read 2 sentences properly. There are policemen who get caught on camera beating citizens as if they are some kind of animals. And you have self-proclaimed group of insecure men thrashing people on streets on Valentine's Day. Why? Because they are the ठेकेदार्स of culture. Why are we even paying taxes? What is happening in Sandesh Kali? The allegations of sexual harassment, exploitation of women, systemic land grabbing. By whom? An honorable TMC Zilla Parishad member democratically elected. There is section 144 imposed in that area. Now, section 144, the usage of this section is not healthy for India all the time. Very often we see this in the news. Section 144 imposed. Should be ashamed of imposing it so casually. Why? Because this section, in a way, impacts our constitutional rights. You have to let go of your freedom of movement, right to assembly. Think about people who are not well off. Disrupts their daily routine, their livelihood. Not everyone is an IAS officer or a politician. They have to make their ends meet. There are kids, their education suffer, and there are instances when civil servants used Section 144 to harass citizens.
आप वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं, मैं पंडित नेहरू का कोट पढ़ रहा हूँ। नेहरू जी ने जो कहा वो कांग्रेस के लिए हमेशा से पत्थर की लकीर होता है। एक बार, और मैं आदरपूर्वक नेहरू जी को इन दिनों ज्यादा याद करता हूँ, क्योंकि हमारे साथियों की अपेक्षा रहती है कि जरा उनको तो बोलो, कुछ तो बोल रहा थे। अब देखिए, एक बार ये देश के प्रधानमंत्री पंडित नेहरू जी द्वारा उस समय के देश के मुख्यमंत्रियों को लिखी गई चिट्ठी है, ऑन रिकॉर्ड है। मैं अनुवाद पढ़ता हूं। मैं किसी भी आरक्षण को पसंद नहीं करता, और खासकर नौकरी में आरक्षण तो कतई नहीं। मैं ऐसे किसी भी कदम के खिलाफ हूं जो अकुशलता को बढ़ावा दे, जो दोयम दर्जे की तरफ ले जाए। ये पंडित नेहरू ने मुख्यमंत्रियों को लिखी हुई चिट्ठी है, और तब जाकर के मैं कहता हूं ये जन्मजात इसके विरोधी है।
बिहार में जीतन राम मांझी सरकार का पहला कैबिनेट विस्तार ही विवादों में फंस गया। वजह बनी मंत्री पद की शपथ ले रही बीमा भारती, जो ठीक से शपथ पत्र भी नहीं पढ़ पाई। बीमा भारती सिर्फ अपना नाम ही ठीक से ले सकी। इसके अलावा उन्होंने जो भी पढ़ा, या तो वो ठीक से सुना नहीं गया, या फिर वो बार बार अटकती रही। बिहार में पूर्णिया के रुपौली से विधायक है बीमा भारती। बीमा पूर्व विधायक अवधेश मंडल की पत्नी है। फिलहाल अवधेश मंडल हत्या के आरोप में जेल में है। अवधेश मंडल की पहचान अपने इलाके में एक बाहुबली नेता के तौर पर होती है।
मैं तेज प्रताप यादव ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा।
ये शब्द उपेक्षित नहीं है, बल्कि अपेक्षित है। कृपया एक बार माफ कीजिएगा। मैं पूरी शपथ को एक बार फिर करें।
मैं तेज प्रताप यादव ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय बिहार राज्य के मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को जब के सिवाय तब के सिवाय ऐसे मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्य के समय निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से मैं संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
I, Sunny Deol, having been elected a member of the House of the People, do swear in the name of God that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India as by law established, that I will uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India, and that I will faithfully discharge the duty upon which I am about to enter.
Why did Ambedkar ji say that democracy in India will work only in formal sense, but in reality there will be no democracy? Today's session should be, how Dr. P.R. Ambedkar predicted the future of India. I loved how Ambedkar ji responded when the reporter told him that elections are important. I loved his response. He said no. Elections are not important. He said elections are important only when they produce really good men. And here in India, in the present scenario, we have Sunny Deol ji becoming member of parliament. His attendance in parliament is deplorable. He hardly has any time to visit his constituency, Gurdaspur, and he has all the time in the world to act in movies, participate in innumerable Bollywood parties, nonsensical promotion activities. Look at his Instagram and you will get your answers. He will tell you everything about his son's launch, everything about his next or past Bollywood movies, but he will not tell you anything about the work he has done as a member of parliament. There is none.
अरविंद केजरीवाल नाटक के किंग हैं। इस समय वो जिस प्रकार से दिल्ली की विश्वास खो चुके हैं, वो कोई भी नाटक कर सकते हैं। अभी उन्होंने कल मिनरल वाटर डलवा के एसिड जैसा दिखाने की कोशिश की। मुझे लगता है कि वो सारी साजिशों का हिस्सा है, उनका जांच हो रही है। मेरा मानना है कि हमें 1 महीने बाद दिल्ली भारतीय जनता पार्टी को मौका देने जा रहा है और हमें लोगों की जो समस्याएं हैं, जो पोल्यूशन है, जो जमुना जी की गंदगी है, जो बुजुर्गों का पेंशन बंद है, जो गरीबों का राशन कार्ड बंद है, गलियां टूटी हैं, अपराध इस प्रकार से विधायक और मुख्यमंत्री अपराधियों को मनोबल दे रहे हैं, इनको कैसे कंट्रोल करना है, इसके लिए हम लगातार योजनाएं बना रहे हैं, क्योंकि वी हैव टू डिलीवर। हमें सरकार बनते ही इस दिल्ली को सुरक्षित भी रखना है और दिल्ली को सजाना भी।
बहनों और भाइयों, राष्ट्र से बढ़कर के कुछ नहीं हो सकता, कुछ नहीं हो सकता। और राष्ट्र तब सशक्त होगा जब हम एक रहेंगे, नेक रहेंगे, तभी नेक रहेंगे। बटेंगे तो कटेंगे।
The country's economic growth has slumped to its lowest point in nearly 2 years. India's economy grew by 5.4% in the second quarter of financial year 2024, a 7-quarter low. While the growth is still positive, it's a stark drop from 8.1% in quarter 2 of last year. Economists expected a higher growth rate of about 6.5%, but several sectors have underperformed.
So today's class is very important, especially for those who have absolutely zero background in polity, because this will give you a broader idea of what India is in reality. Today we live in an age where you will be penalized for being honest. But I think someone needs to have the spine to tell you the truth. This lack of spine in many people who have the potential voice, that's concerning. So I know some of you will go on to hate me after today's session, but it's all in right spirit and we will decipher it. We can live in this self-glory about ourselves, how beautiful India is, how remarkable India is. But we also need to understand the ground realities of India. Today, half-witted Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, graduates from family WhatsApp groups, they would think that they're very cool, as in when they abuse Ambedkar ji. There are many, and you know them, these WhatsApp university graduates. They proudly proclaim that Gandhi ji destroyed India, or Ambedkar ji ruined India, divided India. There's a reason why they were global leaders. There's a reason why they are still revered, even by their opponents. Even today, Barack Obama to Ban Ki-moon, even our present Prime Minister, they all pay homage to these leaders, these legends. These WhatsApp university graduates that we have flourishing in India at scale, that's a very devastating feature of modern day India. The full work is to hatch conspiracy theories, label others as bugs, liberals, anti-Indians. Why? Because they have been brainwashed to such an extent that when you present your logical views, you will immediately be labeled as anti-India or some similar terms, bhakts. These WhatsApp university graduates, they may comment on the personal lives of the legends. Gandhiji walked around with 2 ladies. You also walk. Who is stopping you? But perhaps those ladies will not walk with you. Why? Because your greatest achievement is to abuse the makers of modern India without rationales. Gandhiji was invited to roundtable conferences. Ambedkar ji was invited to draft our constitution. And you, on the other hand, your greatest achievement is that you were invited to your family WhatsApp group. And even for that WhatsApp group, you do not have the admin rights. The currency that you use to the airports that you may use, you may see how these leaders are valued, respected, honored, revered by even formal authorities. Can you imagine Chief Justice of India himself saying Gandhiji is useless? Or even a Prime Minister proclaiming this out in the open? No, because they have brain cells. So what did Ambedkar ji say? You don't get to hear him often, but whatever you hear him, and whenever you hear him speak, don't miss the opportunity today. He said clearly and categorically, and we saw that. I'm not misquoting him. He said democracy will not work in India. In formal sense, it might work, but in reality, no. Why did he say that? What could be the reason? Why did Ambedkar ji say that democracy in India will work only in formal sense? But in reality, there will be no democracy. Today's session should be, how Dr. B.R. Ambedkar predicted the future of India. I loved how Ambedkar ji responded when the reporter told him that elections are important. I loved his response. He said, no.
No.
Elections are not important. He said elections are important only when they produce really good men. And here in India, in the present scenario, we have Sunny Deol ji becoming Member of Parliament. His attendance in Parliament is deplorable. He hardly has any time to visit his constituency, Gurdaspur, and he has all the time in the world to act in movies, participate in innumerable Bollywood parties, nonsensical promotion activities. Look at his Instagram and you will get your answers. He will tell you everything about his son's launch, everything about his next or past Bollywood movies, but he will not tell you anything about the work he has done as a Member of Parliament. Because there is none Member of Parliament. An extremely, perhaps the most important position in India. Why? Because here you are not at the peripheral of the governance. You're at the core of governance machinery. And that is why you get your salaries, house help, bungalows, free air ticket, VIP access to airports. These honorable MPs have VIP access to board flights at a time when regular civilians are stuck debating with CISF Jawans, explaining them, why you are taking your earphones. Why is Sunny Deol given VIP access to the airports whenever he's boarding flights? He is provided so that he can save his time, use that time in the service of his constituency, the service of India, and perhaps attend a few meetings in the parliament. He's not given that VIP access so that he can promote his son or his Bollywood movies. Of course, he is not alone. To all those who are not from the Hindi belt, what we saw in the beginning were the few ministers you might report to if you cleared this examination. Those were the ministers who became ministers and could not even read their oath properly. Do you expect them to abide by their oath of secrecy? They can't even read it. It is alleged that one of the members of parliament gave her parliamentary login access password to a businessman. Think Mahua Moitra. It's alleged, not sure, but I won't be surprised if that happened. So I wholeheartedly agree with Ambedkar ji when he says elections are important only when they produce really good men. It is truly remarkable that we had a leader with such clarity in those day and age. He was a leader who did not just have a clarity, but most importantly had a spine. Did you observe how casually he said, people have no consciousness?
People have no consciousness.
Can anyone say that in India as a politician? And don't you think he's right? It is only when you have unconscious population, and when will you have that unconscious population? When they're drunk on freebies of Congress or BJP, drunk in their quest to divide India on caste, religion, you will get such leaders. There's a member of parliament who gets his salary, receives privileges. That MP has no time for his constituency that elected him. There are ministers who can't even read 2 sentences properly. There are policemen who get caught on camera beating citizens as if they are some kind of animals. And you have self-proclaimed group of insecure men thrashing people on streets on Valentine's Day. Why? Because they are the ठेकेदार्स of culture. Why are we even paying taxes? What is happening in Sandesh Kali? There are allegations of sexual harassment, exploitation of women, systemic land grabbing. By whom? An honorable TMC Zilla Parishad member, democratically elected. There is section 144 imposed in that area. Now, section 144, the usage of this section is not healthy for India all the time. Very often we see this in the news. Section 144 imposed. Should be ashamed of imposing it so casually. Why? Because this section, in a way, impacts our constitutional rights. You have to let go of your freedom of movement, right to assembly. Think about people who are not well off. Disrupts their daily routine, their livelihood. Not everyone is an IAS officer or a politician. They have to make their ends meet. There are kids, their education suffer. And there are instances when civil servants used section 144 to harass citizens. Let me show you one more video. How police behaves, how administration behaves when 144 is in action. I think it's CRPC. Slapping shopkeepers. What happened? Whenever you give unfettered powers to anyone, in this case civil servants or any government machinery, they will abuse it because those are unchecked, unfettered powers. In the video you saw a shameless lady, Manjusha Rai, slapping a shopkeeper. Why? Because he's an Aam Aadmi. Try doing that with Amit Shah's son or any powerful person. Can you do that? An ADM slapping shopkeepers. There was a DM, very famous one, was found slapping a person who was out to buy medicines. He broke his phone. Why? Because he had the license to do it. State gave the license in the form of section 144 of the CRPC. We pay taxes to get some level of security. We don't pay taxes to get slapped by these frustrated civil servants. The word servant is used. We're studying polity, society and governance. Look at polity, society and governance in action. They are servants because they work for us. That's the rationale. They derive powers from us. They get salaries from the taxes that we pay. So what is this? Is this democracy? Don't you think Ambedkar ji is correct so many years ago when he said that people have no consciousness? And when these unconscious people, when they elect MPs, this is exactly what you will see. No matter how much I try, I know this, be it me or people like me or anyone who wants to, let's assume, become a member of parliament. I will never become a member of parliament from Gwalior. People will have zero interest. If I were to tell them what is my plan for the city or how will I achieve that in step-by-step manner with exact date, timestamps, they do not care if I tell them that we can actually collaborate with international governments or local governments. Will never vote for me. They will go and vote for Narendra Singh Tomar instead. Someone who alternates his seat every 5 years. What do I mean by this? Alternating seats every 5 years. He is not alone. There are many MPs who do it. For 5 years, he remains an MP from Gwalior, and the next 5 years, he runs from Morena. Why? Because as an MP, he has to become minister only when he's an MP. But as an MP, don't you think he should be accountable to the people of his constituency? We say that he should be accountable every 5 years. Then what happened? Why is he alternating those seats? There will be no accountability if you keep changing your seats every 5 years. And you change those seats because you know that you've done no work for Gwalior. If people ask you a question, you will have no answers. And he also knows that people voting for him are not conscious, the way Ambedkar ji said. He knows that people will vote for caste. If people were to ask him one simple question, what has he done for the city? No answers. Because there is nothing to show. One of the most polluted cities. See, pollution happens when at least there are industries. But in Gwalior, there are no industries also. Why so much pollution? Agriculture, deplorable. Services does not exist. The only thing that is reaching its zenith is the unconsciousness of people and property rates. Why property rates? Because investing in properties is the best way to convert your black money into white. So people won't vote for me because I don't come from their caste. Caste is very important. Jobs, standard of living, growth of the city, everything takes a backseat. So Ambedkar ji is absolutely correct when he says that people have no consciousness. So let's see what he has to say next. Because what he's going to say next is remarkable. I'll make you watch this video again and again because it's a very interesting interview by a man who is indeed the father of India's constitution. Now listen to this very carefully, whatever he says about the electoral system.
Nobody has. People have no consciousness. And our electoral system, you see, is of a sort which never allows a man to choose the candidate. Now, for instance, the Congress went and said, vote for what? Vote for Bullock. Yes. Isn't it? Yes. No. The man never cared who represented the Bullock. Though it was a donkey who represented the Bullock, you see, or a very educated man who represented the Bullock, he simply voted for the Bullock. Why would that come into meaning?
So to all those who could not hear him, because I think it's an old video, obviously, so audio may not be very clear. So he says that in our electoral system, it is designed in such a manner that you can't choose a candidate. He gave the example of those days. He picks up the example of Congress. He quotes that Congress requested people to vote for Bullock. And he's spot on. He's spot on when he says that people don't care who represents that Bullock. He uses the term, is that representative a donkey? Or is that representative an incredibly educated being? People are unconscious, will simply vote for the Bullock. Does that happen in India currently? Vote for football, vote for Jhadu, vote for Kamal. But now things have moved beyond that. Why? What happened? There is something called anti-defection law in India. It was not there in the original constitution. Which schedule is that? 10th schedule. This has been part of your many questions in prelims. There is something called anti-defection law in India now. 10th schedule. Rajiv Gandhi ji, one of the most useless prime ministers in the history of modern India, he was the prime minister when this law was passed. According to this law, if you do not follow the party directive in terms of how you cast your votes in the parliament, you could be suspended as an MP. Of course, the name is defection, right? Not a dissent. So of course, elements of some defection will be there in that law because you have to make that law logical. But why? What is happening? Law is named as anti-defection. Then curb that defection. It is not called as anti-dissent. Why are you curbing the dissent? How is it possible that every member of parliament agrees with the party lines? What kind of a democracy is this? Is this even a representative democracy in India? Because here your representatives, the MPs, they have to follow the party diktat. So first you vote on the basis of these symbols, entirely disregarding who is standing behind these symbols. And then MP who is elected can't even vote using his rationales or logic. He has to follow the party directive. Of course, there are many other provisions of the Act that curtails and talks about defection bit also, because that's the name of the law. And I will talk about those things in detail. Seems ridiculous, this aspect of curbing the dissent of MPs. Because here you're not being the voice of your people as an MP. You're just being a voice of your high command. What happened to democracy? Government of the people, for the people, by the people. People elect an MP. And if that MP cannot vote in the house in terms of how the people want, how can he also be held accountable for his deeds? That MP votes basis how the Supreme Commander dictates. 20 years ago, that Supreme Commander was in the form of Sonia Gandhi ji, not 20 years ago, 18, 19 years ago. But now the names have changed. And let's see what Ambedkar ji has to say next. The best part is that I am not, reading a book telling you that this is what Ambedkar ji said. You're hearing him speak. That's the best bit. So you can make your own conjectures also. He's saying spot on. What a no-nonsense person. And by the way, this has been part of your UPSC mains question.
Party system. But what you mean by, in a formal sense, you mean that in a fundamental sense, democracy will not work. For the simple reason, we have got a social structure which is totally incompatible with parliamentary democracy. What do you mean that it's based on inequality, or it is based on inequality? And therefore, unless you can get rid of the caste system, you don't think social structure got to be altered. I am quite prepared to say, well, it will take some time for the social structure to be altered if you want to do it in a peaceful way. Yes, you see. But then somebody must be making the effort.
So Ambedkar ji says democracy will not work in India. Why? Because we have a social structure that is totally incompatible with parliamentary democracy. There's one WhatsApp message that keeps on getting circulated that was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar who divided India. Is that true? Can we make a sense of, this is whatever we're hearing? He dreamt of an India that is an inclusive India. His vision has always been based on creating an India based on equality, liberty, fraternity. You cannot build this India if there is always a perpetual hierarchy of traditional elites fighting for special privileges all the time. In that video, we all just saw and heard. He clearly said that social structure needs to be outed. Many have sadly limited understanding of the mind of this incredible human being. They think that Ambedkar ji just fought for Dalits. He merely asked for reservations for Dalits. It's to be duly noted that he fought for India. His vision was not just limited to reservation alone. He believed in the radical transformation of India's social structure to the effect that he wanted to actually eradicate caste-based discrimination. He wanted to ensure equality for all citizens. Reservation were a means, not an end. Those reservations were part of a larger framework of social justice measure. And why not? There is a need to correct historical injustices so that there is a level playing field. And therefore, he perhaps said, outing the social structure. We're not reading any book. We're just listening to the man himself, calling for outing the social structure. But today, what is happening? This caste, a word that is not even Indian, a Portuguese word, it has become our identity. We are asked about our caste in our schools, in our college, in our jobs. And India is a very unique case, where population today is fighting to become backward. Marathas, who once ruled over India, various parts of India, they want to become backward. Gurjars want to become backward. None of that is their fault at all, because our political leadership has used these divisions very efficiently and effectively so that people can keep on fighting for limited pie of seats. Because our leaders who can't even read their oath properly, they cannot think of building a case to increase that pie for everyone. Why is government at the helm of everything? Create right incentive structures and you will see magic happening, wherein everyone can benefit. Today there's another hierarchy being created within the scheduled castes. On one hand, there are scheduled castes in the name of Tina Dabi, her sister, both becoming IAS officers, parents of the civil servants, grandparents also in the civil services, and the kids possibly will also be part of civil services. What are they doing? That's one hierarchy, shamelessly eating up seats of deserving scheduled castes who have actually faced historical injustices, are still facing these injustices. And how are they facing those injustices? Because unlike Tina Dabi, they don't have access to DPS RK or Lady Shri Ram College. When you are deprived of the initial advantages, you cannot beat Tina Dabi and her kids in the same examination. The cutoffs will rise and they're rising for scheduled castes. And why not? Look at the kids, all the kids of IAS, IPS officers. So Ambedkar ji himself said that social structure needs to be outed. But what has happened in India today? The social structure has become part of our identity. We vote on caste, we stand for our caste, we live for our caste. And in that love and hate for our caste, we forget everything about India. Let's see what Ambedkar ji says about Nehru ji.
To change the social system. But your Prime Minister and others made a lot of speeches about the caste system. These endless speeches, you see, when Carlyle was presented with a set of volumes by Spencer, yes, you see, he said, oh, this endless speaking acts in Christendom. Well, it's the same sort of one is sick of speeches. We like to have action. Well, what action do you want? Some program, you see? Some machinery by which the thing could be altered. Some action.
I don't care what Modi ji is saying, but I really care what Ambedkar ji said. He said that I'm sick of speeches. I want actions. And let's see what kind of actions he wants. These speeches will go on and on.
Well, but supposing it doesn't work, what alternative do you see? Well, the alternative, as I think, is some kind of communism. And why do you think that would help the country more? Would it raise the standard of living anymore? Yes, it will. Undoubtedly. I mean, who cares really for this election business? People want food, people want their material needs to be satisfied. In America, yes, I agree. You see, the democracy works, and I don't think there ever would be communism in America. I've just come from that country. I was invited to give a degree, take a degree. But because each American earns so much, well, you can begin to do that here too. Well, how can you begin? They say we have no land. You see, our rainfall is so short. Our forests have been denuded. You see, what can we do?
Ambedkar ji was like a misfitter, thinking across disciplines, environment, geography, monsoons, and of course polity. He will of course talk about economy also. Communism is what he said. I think I agree with one very interesting thing that he said. People need food. They need their basic needs, happiness. And you can't have all of that if society is divided. And if there are historical injustices for a specific community. See, I come from the upper caste, and I still am in favor of reservation. And by reservation, I mean affirmative action. I know this, In fact, when I sat for the first time in my classroom, in one of the classes that I took at Harvard, I could not imagine how someone from Gwalior, from a middle-class family, sit in the same classroom where sons and daughters of prime ministers, presidents, some were sitting and some have sat. In that scenario, my confidence was at the lowest rung. I was dead scared to even raise my hand. In Harvard, there's a provision that you have, you get marks for being an extrovert. All the cases that you have studied, you have to spit it out. Otherwise, you will get terrible marks. But was it because of my aptitude? No. It was because I did not have the confidence. And there are many from villages of India who have the aptitude but not the confidence. And therefore, we need affirmative action in India. But then the question is, should Tina Dabi get benefits of reservation? Should her bloodline get it again and again? Her sister got it. Don't you think that they're genuinely eating the rights, the members of their own community? Why? Because she indeed studied in top-notch schools because her parents could afford those schools. Can't dream of buying a land in flat in Delhi. They have proper flats in Delhi. Studied in top-notch undergrad institutes of Delhi. Parents had all the resources. They paid lakhs to coaching institutes. So of course she had the confidence. And same will happen with her kids. They will have the confidence. They will go to the best schools, best colleges, perhaps abroad. But if her kids are also to get benefits of reservation, then how can you justify members of the same community who do not have access to these opportunities from the rural parts of India? Don't you think then this policy is doing more harm to the members of that specific community? Because now cutoffs are also rising for SCs. They will keep on rising. Why? Because the sons and daughters of IPS IAS officers will have better opportunities at every stage in life, right from schooling to education to then of course employment. And how can someone who is genuinely facing that current injustice from the same community face the historical injustices from the same community? How can they compete in those seats? Hers is not just the only family. It's one specific family. There are many such families. There is no doubt there has to be reservation. There has to be affirmative action policy, but there also has to be some rationality into it so that it is much more efficient. Ambedkar ji also said about communism. Very interesting point. We'll have a debate on that later. But gives us a sense that he is not so micro in merely thinking along the caste lines, like our modern day politicians. And some are made to believe also that he thought only in caste lines. No. He dreamt of an India where perhaps these measures of reservation were no longer needed. Why? Because the caste system and its associated inequalities, they are genuinely and really being used by political parties to further create wedges amongst us all. So, thoughts on democracy. Peaceful transition of power, that's fine. But that is an aspect of political democracy. This democracy cannot last until and unless there lies a base of something called social democracy. Now the question is, what is social democracy? Political democracy, I understand. I'm sensing it. It is there in India. I can prove it to some extent. Of course, I can debate. I can talk about anti-defection laws. But again, there are instances, evidences that peaceful transition of power is happening. But what about social democracy? What does it mean?